it's okay, it's fine. That always means absolutely nothing to the people that are listening to this on anything other than YouTube or Twitch. I always forget, and of course this week would be the one I forget back to back to turn off the damn theme song from repeating itself. It's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, August the 4th, 2017. You know, I'm going to be honest with you, Panic. Looking at the bottom right of my screen to find out what day it was today, I almost said it was August 17th, 2004. I can't hear you. For reasons No, you're not even registering in Discord right now. Something has gone horribly wrong. Okay, this is fine. We can fix this. Wait, this is fine. Nothing. Not a thing. We were just talking 5 minutes ago. Every time. Nope. Nothing. Not a damn thing.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yes, now I can.
Yeah, the processing's off. It's my virtual audio cable died for some godforsaken unknown reason.
Oh,
yes. Hold on. I think I know. Hold on. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes. This is fine now. This is fine. You know what? I'm way too lazy to start over. That's making the cut. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Technical Alpha. You'd swear that we came up with this name intentionally for the purposes of us never actually having working audio, but I promise you that was not the intention. However, very convenient that it is the case. Indeed. Let me switch on over here. There we go. As you can see, this week...
We are the luxury dumpster fire provider.
We are. The top-end dumpster fire. It doesn't get any better than us. We are the pinnacle. You can find us not in Walmart, not in discount Walmart like Target. You got to go high end.
Not even Costco.
No, they can't even get those discounts. You know what? I saw a sick couch when we were in Costco, Gabs and I, here the other day, and it was one of those things that Costco brings in. Yeah, it was one of those things that Costco brings in once in a blue moon, and they got like some sort of ridiculous deal on it. It was completely solid wood construction. It was a big sectional. It was comfortable as hell. It was an amazing fabric that was like easy to clean and everything. And it was like 1,200 Canadian pesos, and it was unbelievable.
Where would you even put a sectional in your house?
Well, it wasn't like a sectional like Jeff's, where he was trying to line the side of a football field. It was more of a reasonable size sectional that you could put in a space like I have.
But you're not a reasonable sized person.
No, however, it was on the longest side, long enough that I could lay down. And be much more comfortable than the current couch. Yes, so I almost Gabs was so excited about I almost pulled the trigger just randomly, and then I realized that would be the dumbest expenditure of $1,200 I could possibly conjure up. But yes, Mr. Black this week is away because he is currently spending some time watching WWE live here in Halifax. I'm not sure what event it's supposed to be. I didn't even hear about it when they announced it months ago, I guess, when he first bought tickets. He even forgot that it was happening until last week, so I hope that he enjoys himself.
I feel like you could have delivered that so much better after last week's Side B. Like, there's so many different ways you could have taken that.
There are, but you know what?
He's exploring himself. He's exploring his options. He's going and checking out some men. Who knows? You could have taken it so many different ways.
Well, conveniently, Jeff has already apparently taken it so many different ways, and I don't need to elaborate any further on it.
He is reflecting. I don't know, however he wanted to go. But no, you went straight for this. No, it doesn't work.
He's going right into it. He likes the sweaty men wrestling, publicly for money. It's just kind of a thing that he's into.
There we go.
Okay, full disclosure, not only is Jeff not here this week, but apparently Panic and I have had our period sync up, and so both of us are completely spaced out today. It took me 3 hours to fill out the script today. It normally takes me about 25 minutes. And I was staring at my monitor for the longest time doing absolutely nothing.
After him and I talked about it, like I threw out a bunch of things. He was already reading a couple of things. So like we had the list of ideas in like 10 minutes. We're like, we're good.
Yep.
Apparently I come in, he's like, yeah, it took me 3 hours to put the doc together. I'm like, well done. Well done.
It's brutal. So this podcast is going to be brought to you by lack of food and sleep. It doesn't pay very well.
We still got some good topics. It'll be good.
We do.
I think it'll be good.
We do.
We do
indeed.
Don't take our psychotic weirdness as a downplaying the quality of the podcast.
No, it is still very high fidelity.
Good show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. First topic of today. I'll even remember, look at this. Maybe I have to be more tired in order to do this. I'm gonna update the text there. Look at that. PUBG. I have one joke for PUBG, Panic, and you know what that joke is? It's a pretty popular game. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, actually, I've been playing it a lot.
Okay.
Which our viewers of the podcast will remember my rant, or what you can amount to my anger meter maybe going up. Not quite launching off the thing. Where it's pretty much one of those battle royale survival early access games, and I railed against them because none of them have ever been good. Apparently, I have to eat my words because PUBG is pretty good and getting better.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And they've been doing pretty solid updates. They actually literally just had one. It kind of fell flat on its face, but they've owned up to it and they're trying to fix it real quick.
Servers are not the friend of PUBG. It's just like
I give them credit because at least they're super upfront and fast about it. Like this patch went out, saw the problems. They're like, yeah, we kind of screwed up and we've been looking at it. It's not quite an easy fix, but this is like our number 1 priority. So give us a little bit of time.
Yeah,
but pretty much it's some latency issue with the number of connections. For those of you that know, PUBG allows up to 100 people in like a battle royale. And from a networking perspective, getting 100 people together on one server is not always that easy, especially for an FPS type game or, third-person shooter type game. So what ends up happening on this most recent update, if you have about 100 people in the server, it's unplayably laggy. Once it drops down to about 70, it starts getting more and more playable. And by 60, it's completely normal. So they're trying to fix that problem that they introduced in this most recent patch. This patch also included a lot of other crazy new stuff. Like it actually publicly released the first-person mode, which is a pretty big deal. It's actually surprisingly well done. Like if you want to, you can go in and queue up first-person mode, and it's kind of like a hardcore mode. And so they've been having some quirks around that. So that's where
that's actually what got now. I'm going to be, I was going to, coincidentally, before they announced before I heard about the first-person patch coming this week, like I think it was Thursday, I think it was yesterday, right, that they actually launched that properly. I was like, you know what, I guess it's been long enough. I've been waiting for the game to get patched and to get to a point where it wasn't just, as much of a dumpster fire as this podcast, and then they announced the first-person mode, and I was like, well, holy shit, now I'm really interested because there was way too much you can abuse in PUBG from a third person. The whole, like, pulled back thing. The most common thing I've seen when I was watching streams is that people would abuse this in stairwells where they'd stand on one side of the stairwell, they'd wait, somebody comes up the stairs, shotgun, you're dead, next guy comes in. It was like a meat grinder, and there was nothing they could do about it because you can see them and they can't see you. Now with this first-person mode, it's wildly different, right? You have no idea, and I have to imagine anybody that played the game a lot in third person, moving to first person, they probably feel paranoid as shit. They probably think that everyone is
kind
everywhere.
of a first-person mode before, but you were at a disadvantage if you were playing against all third-person people. So, like, if you had that stare problem, you could have gone into first-person, but it was kind of like it was a little janky on the perspective, so they kind of tweaked it out. First person mode.
So yeah, it's got my interest now. I'm probably going to play it within the next week or so. Start playing it a little bit more, and this just gave me even more incentive to do it now because I'm way more interested in first person than I am in third. It's just unfortunate that they were having some of the issues, specifically with first person, where the latency or whatever problems that existed or continue to exist in third person seemed to be far more noticeable in first person. So that was a bit unfortunate, but also kind of
the big
to
thing
be
is
expected.
the server problems have been up and down. So like this isn't to say like they'll consistently have server problems, but then they'll fix it over a patch, and then they do something crazy new and causes problems. So I'll give them some credit because again, I guarantee you they haven't expected the amount of people they have playing the game to be playing the game.
I don't think
I'll
anyone
give them a
did.
little bit of a slide.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like pretty much on par with CS:GO or something at this point.
Well, the headline that
we have here, the largest non-Valve game, right?
Yeah, the largest non-Valve game, and we're talking inside of I think 10,000 concurrent people away from the record that CS:GO hit. But obviously Dota is the top of that list by orders of magnitude above everyone else. But below that, where everyone else has to compete against each other, it did almost beat out CS:GO for their top record of how many their peak concurrent players. I think it was 523 or something thousand people, some crazy stupid number. That's a lot of people, especially when the game is in technically early access. And there's only so much you can do to iterate fast enough to please 500,000 concurrent. I mean, if you think about that, 500,000 concurrent, how many people, period, own the game? And I think they announced that they've sold like, what, 5 or 6 million copies of PUBG. Ridiculous. So it's gone 0 to 100 really quick. And I think given the circumstances, they're doing pretty well with it. And I'm going to hop in and I'll, let my thoughts be known maybe next podcast as to how my experience went, which will probably be me dropping in, dying inside of 30 seconds, and doing that for like an entire day, and then be salty about life.
If you die within 30 seconds, that's like a new level of skill.
Hey, look, somebody's got to fill that gap in the bell curve, Panic. I'm just.
Someone's got to be the first one to die.
That's true. You got to be the first one. It's just statistically, it has to be there, and why not me? Sometimes you got to be. You have to beat everyone else to the punch. There is absolutely no segue to any of this in this entire thing because all of them are in no particular order. I'm like, I have
no idea what that is.
Let me see how. All right, I'm going to switch around the order a bit. We're going to skip down to the bottom there and talk about the International 7.
Okay.
I'm just going to call this the I-7 to save typing time. So the International
7, the acronym that everyone uses.
Yes. Well, that or if they're like me and they don't watch it, they're like, "What are you going to talk about? Intel CPUs?" No. So the International 7, also relatively popular thing, currently happening, and I think they just started it this week, right? Like like midweek or something. I think it was. If I'm not, out there, I don't really watch it, so I'm just going on what I've seen people talking about. I guess that there was a bit of a kick up about the people watching live on Twitch TV, and I'm assuming other live streaming services if it's being hosted anywhere else, outside of watching from within Dota itself, and I guess that would be the only other way to watch it, really. So the story is this. They had, Dota has a handful of maps, and they like to come up with like different themes for different shit, which is nice to a degree. But when you're viewing something and the map starts to become a bit of a problem in terms of how easy it is to see what's happening, that's kind of a no bueno situation, which is what was happening this week. And I guess the map that they had chosen to be used for the live streams on Twitch was really difficult to see a lot of skill shots or just area of effect stuff, and it changed a lot of map elements, and it made watching it really difficult. Now, I guess because of how the game works, they don't. It doesn't affect everyone
players
equally.
have the standard client. The players have the same client, the original client. So they saw things differently.
So the players see it.
Main problem,
whatever.
Yeah, the main problem they had though was also you have all the viewers watching this undersea thing, but the terms for stuff undersea is very different from when you're walking around. Like, you don't have a jungle under the ocean. You know, you don't like the lane names were like, you know, the lanes were like on the ocean map, the lane, like, you know, river is the trench.
Yeah.
You can't have a river underwater. So people were just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So
So
a lot of newer viewers were just like, what is going on?
It's a little confusing. So they went ahead and changed it back, I guess, and good on them for doing it quickly, because that, you know, like you were saying, the players see the regular ass map, which makes perfectly good sense. And if you're watching from within the client, you're also seeing the normal map, I guess. So the only people being affected were the you know, the Twitch and other live stream services.
You could choose which one to watch. So.
Watching from home. So yeah, so that was good on them for changing that up. And I only put that in there as well, otherwise, to just talk about how this kind of relates to how I feel about map changes in PvP games in general, or not map changes, but map variations, I guess you could call it. like skins for the map.
On maps.
Yeah. So like League of Legends had like seasonal stuff or whatever, and that was kind of whatever. I don't know if they ever used it in competition, but I feel like if you're going to have an esport, it should be a consistent experience from the player's side all the way up through to the viewer's end. I think everyone should be just seeing the same thing all the time. You know, there's a reason why in other, you know, sports everything is basically identical. There's good reasons for why that's the case.
Your football field, you have decoration in the end zones, and you know, that's about it. On basketball court, you have the logo in the center and the stuff on the side. That's it. Like, you don't mess with. You might have slightly different wood on the floor, like the Celtics arena had a very different flooring type than the others, but you know, nothing too crazy that fundamentally changes it. Like, I was a big thing, like for League, you know, you can't really have a snow map because that changes the dynamic of what you can and can't see usually. Same idea with Dota. They probably shouldn't have gone undersea for the viewer aspect of it, because that changes what you see and it makes it complicated, because, you know, that actually changes the game, especially in esports. It's even more so. You know, it's not like having a rain game or whatever.
No, exactly. So, I've just, it was kind of like, I had a change of tone, because when I used to play League of Legends quite frequently, I always thought that it was that it got really monotonous, that there was only one map, and that they could stand to have like a map rotation of sorts to kind of mix things up. And obviously, that introduces a whole slew of balance issues and everything else, because depending on the map, I mean, I guess it's a double-edged sword, right? On one hand, if you have more than one map and you have to balance for more than one map, to a degree, it means that certain, in the case of a MOBA, certain heroes or champions or whatever they're called, depending on the game you're playing, will be stronger on certain maps than others. So it changes the dynamic that way, and that might be a positive thing, where in League of Legends, for example, metas get locked in place often for really long periods of time, and usually you don't hear people being super ecstatic about how amazing the meta is in League of Legends. So it might you know, complaints. It might help a little bit, but yeah, when it comes down to like an esport, though, you really do want to have as much consistency as possible for obvious reasons, like that we just talked about.
I don't know. I think like there's a difference between having a stable meta and an unchanging meta. Like, again, for an esport, there is you always want the meta to be stable. You don't want there to be like a blatant imbalance in how the meta plays out. But at the same time, part of the excitement about esports compared to other things is that, you know, you have to keep up with the meta. It's something to track. You know, the game, you know, subtly shifts. You know, basketball is basketball and other actual sports, the meta is pretty steady. You might have phases where, you know, a certain type of defense will be popular, and then, you know, or a coach will come up with some other kind of plays and then that'll kind of change it a bit. But that's very different compared to an esport where your heroes will get introduced and they change how the game plays. There might be in Overwatch, for example, a huge meta thing was the dive comp thing, where a lot of the dive heroes, Diva, Winston, and all those guys, they were super strong. And with a couple of patches, it's now kind of changed that it's made it different to watch again. So it brings people back. It keeps the cycle moving, keeps it fresh. So it's a little tightrope they walk. So I applaud Valve for trying, without directly impacting the meta or having a complicated balance thing to maybe change the experience. In the end, they kind of missed a bit, I think.
Just a bit, but hey, they recognized that it wasn't doing so hot. They swamped it out. People will be happy campers, and the $60 bajillion prize pool will still be going ahead as scheduled. No big deal. There is not a single segue to be found for any of the remaining topics, so we're just going to pick one and go with it. We both played Guild Wars 2. That's the thing that we both did. Yeah. And we both. I'm not going to speak for you on this one, but
I think I played for precisely 1 month longer than you.
Yeah, so I think we were both part of the beta.
Oh yeah, no, we were whole hog in for a while.
Yeah, so we were super excited about it. I know I personally spent a lot of hours in the original for sure. I think I spent like 16 or 1700 hours in the original. I was super excited for the second one. Got into the beta. I was kind of on board with how it was going, and then but I knew it was a beta, and there was still time to make some changes, and the game fully released, and I wasn't really sold on Guild Wars 2, and I gave it a shot, and I played it for, like Panic was saying, we played it for a good chunk of time, but ultimately I fell out of love with it, because it was just such a change of direction from the first Guild Wars, and it wasn't anything that I was really... It didn't have any of the mechanics from Guild Wars 1, really, that I enjoyed a great deal and hoped to see in 2, and instead it just kind of borrowed as much shit from World of Warcraft as humanly possible and made this awful hybrid between Guild Wars 1 and World of Warcraft.
I wouldn't even call it awful. Like I think ArenaNet did a really good. This is probably where we diverge. I think ArenaNet did a really good job with Guild Wars 2. At the same time, I think it's a good game. I just don't. It just like includes stuff that I don't like it. Yeah. Yeah, art style, graphics, the way it plays, everything is very well done. But again, like. Part of it was it was missing something that Guild Wars 1 had. There was some charm that Guild Wars 1 had, with the way it was structured and the way it was set up that Guild Wars 2 didn't quite capture. Guild Wars 2 definitely a much more expansive game, a ton more to do. But you said you fell out of love with it. I got there and I'm like, I'm not sure if I was ever in love with it to begin with. But at the same time, I can't point to any one thing in the game that was a negative experience for me. I had a really good time playing it, and then I just stopped, and I couldn't explain why I didn't get back into it. It's like I went on I think I went to like an event or something. I just went on a trip for like 4 days. I came back, and I had zero urge to play Guild Wars. I just started playing something else, and I was like, never quite went back to it. I picked it up here and there, when patch came out, but it never like hooked me in. Like I didn't even max the character on it. I got pretty close, but I never quite did it. I think I got like level 65 or 67 or something.
Yeah,
right on the edge.
That was similar to where I never maxed out either, and I mean it's always hard for me to max out anyway because I reroll characters every 5 minutes, so it's difficult.
I had a ton of characters, but yeah, it was just like. My main one, like my Guardian, whatever, it just never maxed out. I spent a lot of time with dyes and costumes and doing all that stuff. But I don't know. Again, like you were saying, they took a lot of stuff from WoW. And a lot of stuff from WoW is kind of grindy, questing, is running around and doing things. And, endgame and all that stuff was there. But it didn't grab me enough. Like the story was kind of generic. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, the thing that really killed it for me was Guild Wars 1 had one of the best skill systems for an MMO ever crafted. In terms of, I mean, it had some issues, but from how many skills you could use at any given time, it was 8. Limiting it to 8 skills meant that you really had to be, you had builds, and you had to be mindful of what was on your skill bar at any given time, and it also meant that it didn't overcomplicate things for the sake of just dancing around the keyboard like you can in other MMOs when you get to some high level stuff and you've got like 16 different macros to do a bunch of shit. You've got a fucking Excel spreadsheet on one side of you and you're doing all this nonsense. But it had depth, but I also liked how you acquired the skills, and there was a lot of fun to be had just getting the skills for your builds as well. And so when I got into Guild Wars 2 and I discovered that the depth of your skill set was put on a weapon and then use it for like an hour, and all of a sudden you have all the skills and then that's your build, was really kind of off-putting to me, and it made me feel like I didn't have anything different from anyone else. I wanted to, I like the feeling of having something different wasn't there anymore.
So that's kind of one of the things, and again, they kind of started moving away from that whole thing with the expansion Heart of Thorns, but it kind of seemed bolted onto me. I actually never picked up the expansion. I looked at it and I got very close to picking it up because they added like specializations, which kind of take your class and then add like a slant to it. So you kind of use that role in like a different way. And I looked at it and I'm like, and they came at it, each class or each job or whatever, I don't even know what they're called anymore, role got one of the specializations, and then they added one new, which was the Revenant. My big thing is for expansions, I need to see a couple of things. I don't need to see all of these things for it to be like a mentally valid expansion pack for me, but I need to see some grouping of them. One is I like to see new character classes, at least more than one ideally, right? Just something, if I wanted to start at level 1 and, work my way up again, if I so choose. I also want them to add some sort of, either increase the level cap and tie content to it, or give me some sort of progression system beyond it. Guild Wars did that with the expansion. They gave you one new class, okay. And then they gave each class one new slant. And the way I saw it, they changed the ways the class played, but I didn't really get much. They didn't really convey on if you can kind of have hybrid combos with the specialization. From the way it sounded like, is like after you hit max level, you get your mastery specialization and you can start getting points as you get more. It's not like a level, but you keep getting points for the for your specialization path. I'm like, that kind of just changes the way it plays. Can I like do some hybrid of the two and all of that? And it's just like they took each class in kind of a weird way. They're like, oh, okay, what's this class bad at? Let's make this class much better at it. It's like, all right, so now I can kind of do everything at once.
So on a positive note within Guild Wars, I think that first of all, I think he actually stepped away from the company a few years ago now. But one of my favorite concept and game artists, and I say that and I can't even think of his name off the top of my head, that did the art for Guild Wars 2, and I believe I believe he did a bit of Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars has, in my opinion, the best game art of any MMO, and it's not even. There's not even like a close second. Like there's Guild Wars, and then there's everything else is down below it trying to fight.
Final Fantasy XIV as a close second.
Yeah, but the game
Guild Wars finishes in 10 seconds. Final Fantasy is like 12 seconds.
Yeah, it's really, really freaking good looking, and just everything fits so well together. Like the design philosophy for Guild Wars 2 works so much better than, like, see, this is what how I would, how I look at it. Final Fantasy XIV can look good in individual instances, but when I played Final Fantasy XIV, other than the fact that I find Final Fantasy XIV to be kind of bland looking, and maybe it's because I come from Guild Wars where it's anything but bland, shit feels like it stands out when it shouldn't stand out in weird fucky ways. And then in Guild Wars 2, everything looks like it belongs in Guild Wars, from player characters right up on through. Everything looks like it belongs in the world, and the art separate from the game inside of it, but the concept art, I would plaster my fucking walls in that shit. Just the whole room if I could. The music is also phenomenal, and I still stand on the fact that I believe Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 have the best MMO map by miles. And if there was one game that I played recently that has a terrible map, it's 14. Holy shit. 14's
I've gotten the hang of 14.
Oh my god, it's like learning another language.
I've been playing a lot of 14. So like for me, it's second nature. But going back to Guild Wars, though, the big thing is, you know, I was talking bad about Heart of Thorns, but then they announced the next expansion, which is actually, it's called Path of Fire. They literally announced it this week. And again, in terms of the stuff they announced, I wasn't like blown away by it, but at the same time, I looked at it as a total package. They actually came out with more justification for why they're doing things the way they're doing. Because this one, they announced level cap is still not going up. And then they said, look, the reason we don't like raising the level cap is because it just starts off like a whole big ass gear treadmill, right? If you're level 70, they pretty much said if you're level 70 now, all your level 70 stuff, still good. You're perfectly valid. Like you are on par with what you can get in Path of Fire. But with Path of Fire now, this is where it got interesting for me, because now, and if they keep doing the expansion this way, it will still get more interesting for me, is now every class has 2 specialization paths. So you can kind of go, you can kind of like build out. So like you were talking about the skill builds, I feel like now that's something you might have now, because now I play Guardian, I play tanky characters. So pretty much now this one is like, I think it was like a dragon something. I need to do more research. It's been a long week. I really want to sit down and read up on this. But, you know, they have like the Dragon Knight type thing, or Dragon Killer, you know, which is like, we kind of wanted to give Guardians something where they're more useful when they're in the back line, because not all Guardians are always going to be on the front line. So we wanted to imagine, what are they going to do when they're on the back line? So we, you know, figured out a way to kind of tailor their power set, you know, change their weapon a bit, and now they can do some long range stuff with that specialization. You know, the engineer can now do like, it's like a holomancer or something. They can do like hard light constructs, you know, for more defensive stuff. So, you know, each of the character classes are getting like different aspects to them, which when I was looking at that, and then I went back and looked at Heart of Thorns and looked at what they're doing, I'm like, okay, this might be enough to draw me back in. And then they announced like mount gameplay, and they're like, the mounts are more than, you know, just you getting on something and moving around. Like the mounts actually fight with you, like a companion system, kind of like the chocobos in 14 from the sound of it. I need to do a little bit more research on it. But the big thing, and this is, I don't know if you saw the numbers, but and this was one of the big things about Guild Wars, was they're always like, we're not going to hit you with subs, we're going to get you with, you know, expansions, meaningful content. And it looks like they're including a ton of content with this, like whole new region, lots of stuff. And then they announced the price. It's like $29. And I'm like, okay, that makes things a lot more interesting to me.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I'm just like, okay, so you're telling me $29 and I get the whole, okay, sounds good to me. And then they said, we'll have a bundle deal if you want to get both expansions. You know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like $50.
I mean, if there's one thing that I can never fault ArenaNet for, is how they've handled
their value,
the monetization of Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2. It's been absolutely phenomenal. So there's nothing I can fault them for there. The things that are bringing me, you know, want to, you know, for me to go back. I can't even speak. The things that are pulling me back into the game, or making me want to go back to the game, is one, the location. You know, it's taking me back to Guild Wars 1.
It's Nightfall, right?
It's taking you back to the desert, dude. We're going all the way out to
the desert came with the Nightfall expansion, right? If I remember correctly,
what was it called? Prophecies, or no, not what was it?
That was the one with
the original. I'm pretty sure it was the original. That was the main. Oh, it's the north. Yeah, it's the northern crystal desert from the first game, not the desert from Nightfall.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, different desert.
Prophecies. Yeah,
been a long time since Guild Wars.
Yeah, so that's intriguing for me since it's been however many years.
You want to see how they reimagined it?
I would love to see that. Apparently, the open areas are bigger than anything they've ever done, which obviously would be a necessity given the fact that they're introducing mounts. The fact that they are introducing mounts. It's not something that I desperately needed in Guild Wars, but it's fun that they're in there. I feel like I'm surprised that it took them this long to hop on the mount train.
But you want to know the crazy thing about this is the one thing other than the price that blew my mind, right?
What's that?
They announced this literally this week. They gave us all the info this week, and I'm like, oh crap! Now I'm gonna have to wait like 7 months for this to come out. It comes out next month.
Yes, it does. It's September.
I was like, Heart of Thorns came out 2 years ago, and they announced it, and then it took a couple of months for it to come out, if I remember correctly. It was like 6-7 months, maybe. I might be mixing it. 6-7 months before it came out, and it killed all my hype for it. I was hyped when I watched like the whole thing, and I was just like, all right, this might get me back into it, and I just forgot about it.
Way too soon. Yeah. So this
time
they're
just like they announced it, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget about this. Like September 22nd, I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm probably in.
So yeah, it's the only in a perfect world for me, Guild Wars 2 would have been just kind of a more elaborate Guild Wars 1. I preferred the instances over the personal story thing that they do in Guild Wars 2. Although, you know what, the stuff that they're doing with the story in Guild Wars 2 is really good, on average. It's just that I would have preferred to have it more like the original. Maybe that's just nostalgia speaking. I don't know, but it just I felt like I was able to. This is gonna make no sense, but I felt like I was able to enjoy the game more with friends when it was like in an instance. Because I didn't feel so restricted as I do with the whole story thing.
You want to enjoy the game with a handful of people. You don't want to have like 100 people around you, but you don't want to be alone. You want like, and that's actually part of the reason why I like Final Fantasy XIV, because I've been doing a lot of instance runs and dungeon runs recently. I've picked it up again with the new expansion, and I am in a small guild. My guild total is like maybe 80 people, of which maybe like 20 are active. So, we do like small runs and stuff, but it's always it's not like the 8 or 20 man whatever raids. It's always like there's a group of 4 of us, and then we sit there. We're like, all right, I'll heal. Someone will be like, I'll tank, and we'll just switch our jobs up like right on the fly, no logouts or anything, and then we'll just go do dungeon runs.
Yeah,
and do our roulettes and all that, and that's what I like, and that's why I'm been sticking with Final Fantasy, because it gives me like that small social aspect with the tight MMO gameplay I want, which Guild Wars kind of didn't have for me back in the day. But with the expansion, I'm actually going to pick it up. I'll give it another go.
I don't know how much they're going to be able to. I always, whenever an MMO gets expansions, the interesting thing for me is always how that expanded content ends up retroactively affecting the stuff that came previously. So it'll be fun to see how they juggle
with a level
that.
70 still, with a level 70 still being the cap, I feel like that should be a good set.
Yeah,
like,
no, I think it's got my attention. I think that I might have to give it a go. I might have to drop money on it to see if it can get my attention again. I wish that the engine didn't suck so much. It is a beautiful game, but by God, did they optimize that game horribly. Probably top 5 worst optimized MMOs I've ever played. And I feel for the people that play PvP in that game, because that's where it really gets the worst of it. Just having so much shit on a single core on the CPU is so asinine and ridiculous. And I was really hoping that with one of the expansions that they would make some changes to that, because the fact that you can be running a $4,000 PC and still have you know, such horrid frame drops and stuff in these places in the game is just beyond my reasoning. But I hope that it does turn out to be good. I think we'll probably, both you and I will be playing it, so we'll have more thoughts on that as time goes on.
We'll do a revisit in October.
And speaking of betas, right?
Which one? There's 2 on there.
We'll go Destiny 2 on the first one, I guess. One's an alpha, though. One's an alpha, not a beta. The beta for Destiny 2 on the PC. We found out a kind of a weird thing this week. I actually think it was either today or yesterday that happened. Whereby Bungie was like, "Hey guys, so we're a little concerned about some things with how streaming software hooks into the game. So we're putting some restrictions on what you can and cannot record and stream Destiny 2 on the PC with."
There's actually more than just streaming. There's more restrictions than just the streaming.
Oh yeah, there's some other stuff. I'll let you cover the other stuff. Yeah. I'll cover the streaming bit, or the recording streaming bit. So, basically, what they're saying is any form of software that's going to hook directly into the game in order to capture the footage itself is a no-go. You're not going to be able to do that. It's just completely off limits. That obviously hits people that use OBS and XSplit first and foremost above anything else, if they're using game source or game capture, because it's exactly what those processes do. If you, however, so they at least, okay, so the good news is they provided some, you know, the alternatives. They're saying, look, we're not doing this, we're not banning streaming or capturing the game, it's just those methods. So they said, if you want to do this, what you're going to have to do is you'll have to play the game in windowed mode and do a screen capture in OBS or XSplit, which can often be way more intensive on the computer than running in full screen, you know, mode and using a game source. Or you can use a capture card and run the game through that and capture it, which you can totally still do, as I talked about on my stream yesterday. Even if you're in a single PC setup, you can run it through a capture card, and it will just show up in OBS or XSplit like a webcam, and you're off to the races. It's just your desktop is now cloned to the capture card. So it's a headache. It's weird, and I didn't expect it, but I guess it kind of makes sense. I was reading, you know, I read the article, and I was like, you know, whatever, you know, Bungie saying that these things can be abused for hacks and cheats and whatever else because they are hooks into the game. And I was like, yeah, how in the hell would that even happen? And then so I was reading the comments, and one or two of the comments actually more kind of elaborated on how it can be used for those purposes. And so, sure, I obviously there are people that are a lot smarter than I am that have discovered that you can use these things to exploit the games. So I guess congratulations on having too much time on your hands. But I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it is a bit odd. But what were the other restrictions that you were talking about? Because I need to hear what that was about.
Yeah, so this is not just anything that wants to capture the game. This is anything that wants to inject into the game. Now, you might be thinking, oh, there's only negative things you can do with injecting into the game, but things like Discord and things like Mumble do and can inject overlays into a lot of different games. So you get,
that's true.
Instead of getting, because effectively once your video card switches, if you're running a game in full screen mode, it's actually more efficient than running it in a windowed mode on the desktop, because effectively what happens is your computer stops rendering the desktop underneath and it's running the game only on that monitor. That's why you get your little screen blackouts and stuff when you move out of that. But games like apps like Discord or Mumble, what they do is they'll just put the notifier hook into the game. What will happen is if someone messages you on Discord, you get your little pop-up in the corner that looks like just a regular Discord thing, as if you were on the desktop. But that's actually getting injected into the game. Things like Overwolf do the same thing for like Hearthstone and other things, where it injects information into the game that just to get into the renderer. It's just like, we're just going to overlay this on what you're doing. Those are valid use cases, but computers have gotten to the point where you have multiple threads running. Things can go a lot fancier and do a lot of other things. that you could technically scrape and process the entire image as it's come in, and then you could say, based on Destiny, I know what this looks like, and you can put overlays then to say, go here, do this, look at this, and you can be like, because you might not be you might suck at shooters and not be able to see things. A hack would be to be like, put a giant yellow arrow saying guy over here and things like that.
Aimbots become a thing at that point.
Yeah. And then, and that's the main thing. Like if you have the frame image and you have it direct real time from the game at the same time it's coming out, you can make an aimbot a lot better than, doing it after the fact just by reading the monitor screen at the time, So a lot of those higher end aimbots will actually lock in, like similar to game capture. So it's a shitty thing for streamers, but I can understand why they did it. I feel like they could have probably done something better because, you can still use things like shadow play or AMD's equivalent. They don't block those. It's just things that try to lock in on the game itself as opposed to the video card.
Yeah, I can understand, there was, this was blown
I'm not going to pitchfork over this.
No, and people were to a degree, and it just was so kind of
some people, I saw on Twitter, people were going nuts, and I actually responded back to one of them. I'm like, yeah, I kind of see why they're doing this. If you have the direct video feed, there's a lot of shady shit you can do.
Yeah, of course.
I was just like, they made a choice. Like, don't buy the game if you don't want to.
And that's a big problem. That's a far bigger problem on PC than consoles, with all the various things that people can do to cheat and hack their way in with the game. And so, where Bungie is bringing Destiny to the PC for the first time, I guess they're gonna, perhaps, they've obviously decided they're gonna go the extra mile, with regards to protecting the players that are playing the game. They don't want to see that stuff.
There is one other thing.
Oh boy, what's that?
This part rubbed me the wrong way.
Okay.
This prevents those restrictions prevent something else. You can't lock into performance stats, and you can't overlay the performance stats like fraps.
Oh yeah. So well, I guess the only problem with that would be ultimately if the game doesn't provide its own performance stat thing, which most video games have now, right? Like you can on PC there are ways to show the stats. So that's not like, and that's been a problem for the longest time. I can't think of the last time I haven't seen a solution to a problem in a video game that doesn't include, are you running like MSI Afterburner or EVGA Precision or Fraps or DX Tori or like anything that, like you just mentioned, where they're injecting stats to the screen. I mean, that's it's just kind of like, it's the first thing. It's in the list. It's, are you running antivirus, and then are you running those programs, and those are the first two. So I guess it's not like a huge shocker. It's annoying to be certain. It will be more annoying if they don't provide their own solution. But I would be very weirded out if they didn't provide their own solution. That wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. So it is what it is, and there's probably ways around that all the same. I'm sure somebody will figure out something. People are, the internet's a scary place, man. There are a lot of people out there looking to do some crazy shit at any time, so you never know.
Shady shit.
Well, trying to think of this. I was hoping I had a segue. You know what the segue will be? It's not even written down. I just want to give a quick shout out, because technically I'm a partner, despite the fact that you get pretty much nothing as a partner, to Discord, because Discord announced on Twitter that they
not get one of those hoodies.
I did, actually. So you do get. So
I hate you.
Yeah,
I didn't get a hoodie.
I have.
I'm not even a partner.
We
need to get a technical alpha Discord so I can get one of those hoodies.
There you go.
Get partnered on technical
easy
alpha.
enough.
Make this
That's
happen.
Easy enough. But they announced video and screen sharing. Holy fuck! And not only did they announce it, but they did something that nobody else seems to do these days, and that's they built out their server infrastructure in advance of releasing this shit. They didn't say, fuck it, we'll wait and see what happens when we press the go button and then build later. They're actually adding a whole bunch of servers to the US and EU beforehand, and then release that stuff, which is already a 5 out of 7 from me. Now, whether or not when they release it, it's going to be without a hitch, I doubt it. I bet you there's going to be some
We
issues.
have to make sure. I don't know. We're putting a lot of hype into this, but we haven't even seen what the video looks like yet, man. It could be another Hangouts.
Not a clue.
Like,
well, I mean, let's put it this way. It can't possibly be worse than Skype. I'm
going to argue the other way around. Skype's video quality is actually pretty good compared to what we've seen. You know, how many how many of those software,
I guess that's true.
How many of those pieces of software did you look at before we came back and said, you know what? Skype is actually not that bad.
That's fair.
We went through a lot.
Skype's biggest boon was how they arranged the screens when there were multiple people in it. It was less about the quality and more about the fact that it didn't do some weird tiling bullshit that other people
Discord needs to Brady Bunch that shit.
Yes, they do. I'm so tired.
Just give us a Brady Bunch mode.
I'm so tired of all these other softwares like trying to differentiate amongst each other by changing how the layout happens. You don't need to get complicated. One of them was using circles, for fuck's sake. Like, why? What is the point of that? You're just losing all sorts of screen real estate. It's so silly, but I do look forward to seeing how that turns out. Hopefully it's good, because if we can move all of our stuff to one platform, and the sooner I can get away from Skype, the happier I will be.
Dude, if we get everything on the Discord, we need to go to them and be like, yo, we're a podcast. We use your shit. Sponsor us.
Exactly. That's the show. That's what we need. But also, I just want to give a quick shout out to Skype. I want to give a quick shout out to Skype for showing up as all red bars all the time. We are currently video conferencing at HD quality for whatever they consider HD quality, and with no issues, and yet we have the worst possible connection rating on Skype. But if we went to audio and everything, there would be skipping and just falling apart and shit, which is why we are currently using Discord for audio and Skype for video. It's a hot
I don't know. It says my connection speed is fast. But I'm in America, so, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we're both on the East Coast.
I'm miles versus your kilometers. Who knows?
If I tried hard enough, I could throw a stone to where you live right now. I have fiber optic, internet, because the fiber lands here from across the pond, and yet somehow, with like one hop to their server, it's all red. It's unbelievable. 10 out of 10. That's the closest thing I have to segue for that. Moving out of that, let's move on to the alpha on this list.
Hold on.
What?
I have a perfect segue for this.
Oh shit, okay, go for it.
You ready? It's like Discord was psychic. They read your mind.
Alright, I was going to talk about Star Citizen, but we're going to talk about Miss Cleo now. Wrong order, but we're going to talk about Miss Cleo.
That segue was perfect, though. That segue was perfect.
We've segued into Miss Cleo. I'll give you points for that, I guess.
You turn on the highway. You turn on the highway, boys.
Alright, so, I had to add this in, because it's the silliest thing I saw in the news this week. If you are in North America and over the age of probably 20, you know who Miss Cleo is, and if you don't, if you Google, you'll find out in 2 seconds who.
You're so lucky you don't.
Oh, dude, no, my life would be so much worse if I didn't know who Miss Cleo was. Miss Cleo was the peak of late night random infomercial entertainment. Unbelievably good shit.
Mine was Ronco, man.
Oh,
Showtime Rotisserie Grill.
Oh, Ronco.
Showtime, nice set.
Set it and forget it, bro. Just set it.
Ooh, yeah.
And forget it. Face to the crowd, same guy clapping the same way every single time. But Miss Cleo was an on-TV psychic, so to speak. She'd read into your future. She was she was supposed to be able to see into the future. So you call her up, and Miss Cleo, and she called me now for your free tarot card reading. And is this Jamaican lady that had absolutely no skill.
How many times did you call Adam?
0. But I think it was because the service wasn't really available in Canada because they were on American TV stations.
$2.49 a minute.
Oh my god, the amount of money. And they made a huge amount of money off of that shit. Like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they scammed the fuck out of people like crazy. It was amazing. And apparently the company that eventually that she worked for scammed her equally as much as she was scamming other people. And so there was a big friggin' mess about that in the 90s and even in the early 2000s. She actually just passed away, I believe, last year, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is some weird news to crop up in the feeds. Apparently, the company that she worked for, which was called, what was it? The Psychic Readers Network. Yes. Suing Take-Two over the Miss Cleo copy in Grand Theft Auto, I think it was San Andreas was the one that she was in.
It's like years ago.
You know, 15 years ago, no big deal. And coincidentally, you know who voiced that character in the game? Miss Cleo.
Well done, Psychic Readers Network. I'm sure you didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, so a little odd that, you know, they wait until after she's dead to drop this one, and she voiced the character in the game already, and so there's absolutely no legal anything to be done here, but it's incredible to me that they're trying to sue Take-Two of all people. Like Take-Two is huge. It is one of the largest entertainment companies. Oh, it's just endless.
They're literally printing money.
Endless. And then Psychic Readers Network coming out of the 90s trying to sue them for Lord knows how much money. It's probably going to be something stupid because they cited that that while they made like $100 million off of the Miss Cleo character or the brand Miss Cleo, that Take-Two made like $500 million on that game using, obviously, Miss Cleo's likeness and voice, and so they want a piece of that pie because everyone ran out and bought San Andreas so they could listen to Miss Cleo on the radio.
I didn't even know Miss Cleo was in that game.
Exactly. Even though she's in the credits and everything, that's all there. So it's freaking hilarious. But hey, it happens. Now it's the world.
I've got another segue for you.
Shit.
For you.
All right, segue quick.
Do you think the Psychic Readers Network could tell us when Star Citizen is going to be released?
Oh, that's a way better segue. I like that one. That was good. The answer is no. The answer
now,
to that
is this
question,
because they suck, or is it because there's like Star Citizen? It's an unanswerable question.
Yes.
Okay.
Star Citizen's Alpha 3.0 got delayed. I think it was like a whopping 2 weeks, but now every time Star Citizen, any kind of delay happens, the world implodes.
I'm going to say this right now because I'm going to be able to say this because Jeff isn't here. Because Jeff would just start screaming. Jeff would just start screeching.
Right now, Jeff is screaming.
I don't care that it's going to be late. I don't care that it's going to be late. It's already years, and I already know. Like I you know, it's not like I'm going to be seeing anything, and I don't mean this in a negative way. When Alpha 3.0 releases, I'm not going to be seeing anything that I haven't already seen already. They've already shown us everything that's coming in Alpha 3. They've told us exactly what's going into Alpha 3. They're like, these are the new features. This is what we're implementing. This is everything you get to see. All right, and then literally it's like, yeah, we're having some polish issues that we're working on, so it's going to be 2 weeks late. Okay, I mean,
it's not like
it's not like they're like being sketchy about it. They've literally, everything has always been late for them, and they've always been transparent about it. They literally just put everything in front of you. I'm just like, whatever. Look, I mean, I've already invested my money at this point. It's coming eventually.
Look, yeah, it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, the game is like 5 years into development, and they didn't just start the game up. They built an entire company first. And then they decided to start the game at the same time. And they've done a lot of stuff.
Complicated. The game is so complicated. There isn't an engine out there that could do it. They tried with Crytek to do it, and Crytek could do the graphics, but they realized that Crytek cannot do the network code. The netcode in CryEngine is trash. So you know what? And this is the thing. They've still been coming out with stuff, like new stuff all the time that's been pretty seamless to us. They moved all the netcode over to friggin' Amazon Lumberyard, which is a completely different game engine made by Amazon. And guess what? The only way you noticed that happened was when you played the next build and you were just like, hey, everything's running a lot smoother. This is really working a lot better. And you're like, Wonder what they did. Probably like 5 lines of code. Who knows? But yeah. I'm like sitting there and like I was reading the dev blog and they're like, yeah, so we had our studio doing like all the net code and we realized there's just so many deficiencies in what CryEngine can do because it was never geared for this. You know, we started working with Amazon with Lumberyard and then we had to like build out like this whole new thing. And then they're literally talking. I'm like, they talk and then at the end they're like, yeah, we're using like Lumberyard to do it. I'm like, are you shitting me? Did they literally just like merge 2 completely separate game engines to use like the render engine from Crytek with Lumberyard? This is like a 2-engine game now.
Oh, it's nuts.
And so it worked. And I'm like, this is going to be a monstrosity that's never going to work well. But then I was playing like Star Marine, that was like the patch it came out with.
Yeah.
Like I was playing like the first person shooter part. And again, like I'm not mad. You know, if there was any other game coming out like this delayed, I'd be mad. But, you know, they've been continually putting out like milestone updates in the alpha stuff that you can play. And like I can get my hands on it and I can see it. So like I'm just like, that's why I'm like chill about it. But yeah, I was just sitting there and I'm just like, and I'm like, you know what? I saw the dev blog and I actually played it. It's definitely playing a lot better than it did like a couple of months ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And like I know engine programming and it's like super complicated. So I'm like the fact that they're able to do this, I'm
fine.
Like
I think it's fine. They said that it was the patcher that was causing most of the issues and in that they're actually including a patcher now so people don't have to re-download the entire game every time an update arrives.
That's what they're working on now, right?
Yeah, that's what they're working on. They're spending their extra time on
like 30 gigs, 40 gigs every time.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of you know stuff for people to be deleting and downloading over and over again. So the patcher is going to be a huge step for them. If they had an internal patcher as well that was also having similar issues, so they're fixing those things. The game, it's not like they delayed it for like 2 months. They delayed it for like 2 weeks. So it's not
like, yeah, we want to finish the patcher.
It's not a huge, you know, it's not like a huge problem.
Honestly, for some people, that would take them 2 weeks to download if they didn't have the patcher.
Oh my God, I can only imagine. Like that's a you know, 30 gigs is no joke. 30 or 40 gigs is no joke at all. So I mean, I watched the trailer for 3.0, and you know, as somebody who's not invested in the game, like I have $0 into Star Citizen. I'm
not going to say how much I have in.
It's several Canadian pesos, I'm sure, but I don't have anything invested in the game, and you know, but it's definitely a very intriguing game for me to watch from the outside because it is almost like an experiment within the game development sphere. You know, how far can crowdfunding really take a game?
How big can we go?
And how big can it get? How will it live up to expectations? I mean, this is a game that's probably still, I have to imagine, between 3 and 5 years away from a full, honest to goodness completion release.
I don't honestly. I'm gonna take a step. I'm gonna take it a step further. I don't think it will ever be fully released, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I know what I think is gonna happen. Is probably within, I'm going to say by sometime in 2018, we're going to see the single player campaign. We're going to see Squadron 42 as they promised it. And that will be the single player experience that, you know, they initially sold the game on. I feel like that's going to be coming in 2018. Just because they've had a separate studio just working on that alone. You know, they did all the actions. I feel like that we're going to get that. And I feel like that's going to hopefully assuage a lot of people being like, okay, so they got part of it out. The multiplayer portion, I don't think they're ever going to quite finish because it's a large scope. They're doing like a full first-person shooter component. They're doing a full universe component. They're doing like the ship-to-ship component. And, you know, we've seen pieces of each of them, and they're all complicated pieces of technology. I don't think they're ever going to finish. You know, they'll get it all out there. They'll get us a coherent experience. Yeah, but I think it's just going to be constantly. They're just going to be like, it's like that bridge, right? You start building that bridge, you finish it, and then you know you slap that coat of paint on it, and by the time you've gotten to the end of the bridge, you're like, oh, we got to start painting it from the other. We got to start painting again from the beginning. So you literally just pick up all your stuff, you go right back to the beginning, and then you start painting everything again. You know, by the time you get back to the end of the bridge, you got to do it again.
I think they've already.
I think it's just gonna be in a constant iteration.
I think they've already hit that point since they switched entire engines. They've already gotten to that point at least once. And I agree, but I think when I say that it's roughly that far away, I think that's the core.
Like one of the big things they were saying was like one of the big things they were saying was so the Crytek had this massive problem in their engine, which it wasn't like a huge issue for them, and we found it and they couldn't fix it for a while, so we went ahead and we fixed it ourselves because we have the source code. So we rewrote it and we fixed it, and it does everything we needed to do. And then Crytek came out like three years later, and they fixed it and they added a bunch of other stuff on top of it, and they've added a bunch of other things, but that we wanted, but now we can't use it because our code base is so far different from theirs that it's a completely different engine. So now we decide we're just going to do it again ourselves because we did it better than they did the first time. So it's complicated because they're effectively building the engine.
Well, yeah, it's and you have to when the game is when you're building a game that is orders of magnitude greater in scope than any other game that's ever existed previously. It would be silly to imagine that the engines that exist, for the common purposes of other games even in the AAA sector, they're not going to be capable really of upholding everything that needs to happen in order to make a game like Star Citizen work. So I think they're still doing fine. 5 years for the development of a game is still within the bounds of many AAA titles that a lot of people enjoy these days. And this is a much bigger game than that. So if it takes another few years, then it's not really the end of the world. I think it's just because the game has been
want a smooth experience.
Yeah, I think it's just because the game's been so publicly paraded for so long that it feels like the game has been in development for way longer than it actually has, and so people are getting a little bit more up in arms about it whenever something like this happens. Like something as silly as a couple of weeks all of a sudden becomes a huge point of contention because every little delay is obviously showing a crack in the armor. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
More than 3 years. Why? It's been like 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 5.
I don't even know which job I was in when Star Citizen got announced.
Oh, it seems like forever ago, but it would be like Bethesda announcing that as soon as they dropped Skyrim, then they announced they're doing Elder Scrolls 6, and just right away, and then you just hear about it forever, and then people would have the same thing, like this game's never going to come out. They'd be 4 years into development, and people would be losing their minds, not remembering that the time between Elder Scrolls games is usually a really long freaking time. So, that's something that people, I think, have to keep in mind, for sure.
No Man's Citizen.
No Man's Citizen.
Or No Citizen Sky?
No Citizen Sky. There you go. That's better. I think that's a better one. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna call it there for segment 1 on side A here. We're gonna take a small break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit about some TV and movie news. I think there was some more that you had sent me earlier today that I totally didn't have written in there. So if you have stuff while we're on our short break, feel free to add it in. If not, YOLO.
I did.
I don't know. But we'll be right back, guys, after a short break. Sit tight, and we will return. Hey guys, if you're enjoying Technical Alpha and are interested in supporting us, do I have a solution for you? We've set up this Patreon page to help us help you, help us and you. We've got a list of options that would make a used car salesman cry that provides you with a range of goodies for your support. Head on over to patreon.com/technicalalpha to see what's up for grabs. Like fancy badges and stuff? Subscribe to us on Twitch to get access to, well, badges and stuff. Not big on subscriptions? We have a button below that allows you to directly throw money at our faces. Careful you don't take those eyes out though. We are so very fond of our eyes. Honestly though, while we like to joke about the sellout, just being a regular listener is a huge help, and we're incredibly thankful for all of your support. Technical Alpha will continue soon, so sit tight. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, from that little quick sellout break. Appreciate you listening into that, if you did. And again, as always, thank you so much for continuing to show us that love on iTunes with those reviews. It's going a long way, guys. Really appreciate all that that support. That's how this podcast can grow. The growth. It's important. So, Mr. Panic, we now have to string together...
You were about to say Mr. Black, weren't you?
Nope. No.
You sure?
You're not dark enough for me to make that mistake. Actually, you're both about the same skin tone, to be honest with you. You're pretty damn close, so... One or the other. One or the other. We have to come up with an entire segment 2 with, like... 4 bullet points. Do you think we've got it in us?
Well, if we go on the time basis, we're supposed to go, what, an hour and a half for the first 2 segments? We're already, like, clipping in at, like, an hour and 29. So we could technically do 15 seconds per segment and we'd be good to go. But our viewers would probably hate that.
Yes.
So we'll give them as much as we can per topic, and then we'll keep it natural. We'll go with the flow.
I think that works.
You can ramble about things. You can talk about how you haven't watched Lord of War yet.
Oh my god. I have it and it's ready to go. I probably would have watched it in the last couple of days if it wasn't for Fridgegate 2017. Whereby
don't blame the refrigerator. Had you bought a refrigerator from Nicolas Cage, you wouldn't be having this problem. All right?
Okay. If Nicolas Cage was a door-to-door refrigerator salesman, would you buy one? Would you do it?
My refrigerator's working fine. I'm not the one with a fridge problem.
Look, if Nicolas Cage showed up, whether or not you had a fucking fridge, and Nicolas Cage entered your home and tried to sell you a fridge, would you or would you not buy a Nicolas Cage-backed fridge?
Probably would. Probably would.
I couldn't pass that up. Are you kidding me?
I'm gonna say Nicolas Cage sold me a fridge. Pretty big deal, man.
Lord of Fridge, that's his new movie coming out 2019. Look forward to it. Sponsored by GE. Be a great film for the whole family. Yeah, so first things first on our list here is a mixture of TV and movie. So I was really excited. Well, I shouldn't say really excited. I was more interested than usual about Dark Tower. Of all the previews and stuff I saw, the fact that it was, Stephen King's kind of baby, this was like his series of all the stuff that he's written, and he has written a lot of shit. This was his thing, and the fact that it had Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey in it, I was like, how could this possibly get fucked? I had no idea that this movie had such a troubled production, like, lead up to its release. I had no idea. But apparently it was a gong show.
Apparently they completely didn't use any of the source material other than the 3 characters, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh. So you literally took something that was pre-written and would have been perfectly adaptable because it's freaking Stephen King, and you fucked it up.
I don't even know how. Yeah, that blows my mind. So it's got a terrible review scores just about everywhere.
Yes, I was gonna go see it this weekend.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, maybe not. And it's funny because Stephen King is still talking about wanting a sequel, wanting the sequel to be rated R, which I think this. I mean, I can understand why this first one wasn't.
Dark Tower is dark material. Like, it's not something that, when it says PG, they're like, okay.
I mean, it makes sense to me insofar as that if you do the first one PG-13, it gives you a broader audience, and then you can do the follow-up in the rated R, and, probably in between the time of those 2 movies getting released, the people that wouldn't have been able to see an R-rated movie, many of them will now be able to see an R-rated movie, so on and so forth, and be able to be more true to the source material. I would be impressed if, well, I shouldn't say that. It had a really good opening weekend, like big numbers opening weekend, considering the reviews were so shit. So that's a bonus, but I don't know if that's going to be sustained long enough for them to look at it and say, yeah, we should do a sequel or a follow-up to that movie and film. They were also talking about, for the longest time apparently as well, and still, I guess it's up in the air now, a TV series for Dark Tower that would go in between movie releases to elaborate upon the shit that the movies could not, which all sounds really awesome to me, but they kind of made the worst possible first step in doing all this release.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really launch a TV show off the back of a bad movie. It doesn't really work all that well. They have one of the Walking Dead showrunners heading up the TV series, though. It wasn't the original one. It was, I believe the guy's name is Glenn Mazzara, is the one they have running for this one. He was the one that replaced the original guy, Frank. I don't know what Frank's last name was. It's completely eluding me this week.
Frank.
Yeah. So, Walking Dead's been doing pretty well. They're still going. And yeah, it might have gone down a bit, but it's still super popular. So, getting one of their showrunners on board might not be a bad thing. Overall, I'm just disappointed that the movie didn't do so well because effectively they had the makings of a slam dunk if they just kind of followed the source material for this one.
Holy shit, how do you fuck that up? You've got Stephen King's baby. You've got a time where dark, gritty, gorier movies are doing extraordinarily well. Huge numbers. You've got you've got
you just missed.
You've got Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey and everything, just Stephen King. Like every name that this comes up on this list, and you're like, how could this possibly suck? And they managed to make it happen. That's really impressive.
I think I actually understand how this might have happened. This reminds me of a GIF I saw earlier today, right? It's the video where the guy was like, he carried like the 18 sets of barbells and like he placed them down one on top of the other.
Yes,
and he's all ready to do this like epic, don't ruin this.
Okay.
He's like got this all set. He's got all of these things stacked up, like 18 of them stacked 9 high, climbs up on the stand. And he does he balances himself on these 2 things. And he's like doing like a handstand, like completely balanced, suspended. If any of these things move out of the way the wrong way, this guy's landing on his face with weights falling all over him. And you want to know what the focus was on this? It was like the 90-year-old man in the background who was literally nailing free throws, just like throwing them, walking up and slowly grabbing them. And then just walking back and just knocking them in. No one cared that this guy did this thing. It's like, wow, that old man did not miss one free throw that entire time. No, I feel like that's what happened here. It's like they had all the makings of this really like awesome video. You had this epic scream, you had this epic book from Stephen King, which are all those weights. You've got this Jack guy who's about to do anything amazing, which is like Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. And then, boom, you film the whole thing and you got that old guy in the background shooting free throws. And that's what happened.
It's really unfortunate. I mean, maybe this will be one of those things, though. Maybe. This hasn't been out long enough, really, to be able to tell this for certain. But maybe it's one of those things that even though it ignores source material and does all this nonsense, that when people go out and watch it, they still get entertained, and so it's still
you can
passable.
Ignore the source material and have a good movie. It's fine, but like when you have Stephen King, that's not source material you ignore.
Yeah, well,
George
exactly.
Lucas, I can see you ignoring the source material, but like,
in fact, you should intentionally make an effort to ignore.
Maybe just throw the
George
dialogue
Lucas.
out.
Yeah. So it's a bit unfortunate, but it's there. I hope, for me, I feel like the even better move for this would have been a Netflix series. I think that would have made way more sense.
Idris Elba's already done stuff, so
he has exactly. Well. I think it would have been a better move. And you know what? Maybe this is going to sound awful, but maybe this movie does so bad for the Dark Tower name that Netflix can buy it up cheap so that it will happen and do it properly. And I would love to see that shit. I think it would be great. And I bet you Idris would still be on board with it. It strikes me as material that Idris is probably interested in by himself in the first place. So I bet you he'd probably still be on board with it if that's the way it goes. Hey, there's another guy that I really like on this list. His name's Woody Harrelson.
I don't know a Woody Harrelson. I do know a Wood Harrelson.
Yes, I forgot the Y in the notes there. Wood Harrelson. Woody's estranged brother.
What would Wood Harrelson do?
I mean,
tell us about it.
Okay, Wood Harrelson is one of two things. He is either a ironically named crafts, woodsman's store owner. Or he's a really poorly named porn actor. Those are the two options.
Wood for Wood Harrelson?
Yes. That's exactly exactly where I'm going with that.
All right, now that I've completely derailed your segue, go for it.
There was no real segue to that to begin with. But he was talking a bit about the Han Solo movie, and we've talked about the Han Solo movie, I believe, in the past on the podcast, talking about our thoughts on it, and then obviously some of the stuff that's happened around it, chiefly the fact that they let go, what was it, who was it that they let go? The director? Was it the director?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so they were just like, hey, peace. Get the fuck out of here, you're messing this up. And it was because they were getting a little too loose and a little too comedic in different ways that they weren't so happy about. And so it was funny, I guess might be a stupid punny word to use there, when Woody comes out and says, hey, the Han Solo movie is, should be the the funniest Star Wars movie. And then I stopped and was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like something you should say after all the shit that's happened. And then you go in and you read about it, and sure enough, he's talking about how the fact this movie is going to be like really funny, and which when you think of Han Solo, obviously there's going to be the downplayed one-liners are like Han Solo's character, right? As far as the comedic value goes. But I just thought it was really freaking weird. I'm sure that it is going to be a funnier Star Wars movie. I don't know how much comedy they need to cram into this thing, but
Han Solo wasn't necessarily comedy. He was comedic relief, but his character itself wasn't necessarily. I wouldn't even say it was unintentional. It's not like his main note isn't comedy. Yeah. He had wit and sarcasm to him, and that was part of the character, but he's not necessarily a funny guy. He's pretty serious, does serious things. So yeah, I can see it definitely being, more lighthearted than some of the other movies like Rogue One, but, I don't necessarily think it's going to be like, that shouldn't be like a comedy.
No, of course not. But I'm happy, to see that they're still obviously going to keep humor in it. I don't know how many people would have thought they weren't going to, but it obviously gave me
Man of Steel.
Yeah, it gave me a little bit of cause for concern. Just obviously with the turmoil of firing a director at this stage in the game, anyway. Even though it does happen relatively frequently in the movie business, but around a Star Wars movie, it's not necessarily something you hear about every day. And so it gave me a little cause for concern. And then the reasoning behind it was also, okay, well, how not funny are we going to make a Han Solo movie? How far down the rabbit hole is that going to go? And so
you don't go Ace Ventura.
Yes. You know what? I'd be okay with that.
That's actually what they compared it to. Like the people were like, yeah, they were kind of going the Ace Ventura route for Han Solo, which wasn't quite right.
For a parody movie, sure, okay, but I don't think we need to go that route for the real thing. I guess Woody in the movie plays Han's mentor, is his role in this movie, and so the thing that I'm now looking forward to is, or interested in is Woody's character going to have that same humor, and is that where Han picked it up from, or was Han just inherently a bit of an ass? And then there's going to be a little play on between those two characters.
You want to know who I'm excited to see more than anything? Donald Glover.
Donald Glover is a god, dude.
As young Lando, that will be amazing. I really want to see that. I want to see that badly.
Absolutely.
More than I want to see Han.
Well, I mean, I think that coincidentally, for me anyway, I'm more interested in basically every other character in the Han Solo movie
Than Han.
Yeah. Both in terms of the people that they chose to play the characters and the characters themselves. Yeah,
pretty much.
For better or worse, there you have it. And hopefully it does turn. I mean, they have such a crazy, awesome cast in that movie that I have to imagine it's going to turn out well, even despite some of the hiccups that they've had. So we won't get too concerned about it, I'm sure. James Cameron, who has done a number of relatively large movies in his career, you've probably heard of some of them. One of them would be Titanic, which happened long enough ago now that it makes me feel old.
I still drop Titanic jokes on my cousin. Mostly because she watched Titanic in theaters 12 times.
Oh my god, that is a long time to be sitting in a theater. Holy shit.
Yeah, and she made some joke about that time frame, like about Super Nintendo or something. I'm like, look, could have just watched Titanic like another 3 times and it probably would have been fine. Yeah, Titanic is still relevant in my family circle for mockery.
I think my
mom saw it like 6 times.
I think Titanic is always relevant because it was just a big.
It's a good movie.
It's a really good movie.
I don't know about 12 times in theaters good.
No, I don't think so. I could agree with you on that one. But, you know, it's obviously a landmark movie and will forever be a landmark movie. It stood at the number
seeing
one
a movie 3 times in a theater, and that was Iron Man 1.
I mean, what was it? It held the number 1 grossing movie for how long? Like, it was forever, wasn't it? It took Avatar to was it Avatar that dethroned it? I think
something like that.
So I mean,
like that. It was another James Cameron movie.
Yeah, it was another. Only James Cameron beats James Cameron. He only nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Yes, exactly. So you know, that was kind of crazy, and I just remember that it was also the only movie that I ever owned that came on 2 separate VHS tapes. Where you got so far.
I remember that. I was gonna mention that, like the double decker.
Yeah, so you had to like take what you're like, oh shit, we hit the end
double
of
the rewinder. Like, that's my question though. Do you rewind the first tape as you finish it, or do you put in the second tape and then rewind them both?
Oh,
like that was always my conundrum.
I feel like because I was a kid, I probably I didn't have the patience to take the time to rewind it before swapping them out. But, you know, in reality, sometime now, I'd probably imagine that I would... No, that's a lie. I'd probably just keep watching it and rewind both of them afterwards. I don't think I could do that to my... Like, if you're stopping and rewinding it, it doesn't take, like, 30 seconds to rewind a movie, even if you had one of those hyper-speed...
It's like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah. Even if you had those super fast ones that sound like the VCR was going to explode at any given minute and the heat was coming off of it because it was moving so
rewind.
Fast. Yes. I never saw that movie. Was it any good? Did you ever see it?
It wasn't a movie. It was literally just the thing they always had on the tapes. Be Kind, Rewind.
No, Be Kind, Rewind. I'm positive that was a movie.
If that was a movie, I did not watch it then because I didn't even know it was a movie.
Now I have to Google it. Yes, it was. Starring Jack Black, of all people. And
How old is this movie?
2008 was the original release. And it
VHSs weren't even around.
What
the shit, Jack Black?
It had a budget of $20 million and it had an earth-shattering $30.6 million box office.
People paid to watch that bullshit?
They did.
It made money?
It did. It made money.
Oh my god.
It did.
I feel like that's something I would see in friggin' Tropic Thunder or something as one of those lead-in trailers for fake movies.
Oh, it's good though. It happened.
Rewind.
It happened. But all of that is to say, that is the longest way to get to the point of this headline, was that it's the 20th anniversary coming up for the Titanic movie. And so James Cameron and Nat Geo are getting together to do a documentary on the film, which is probably going to be pretty awesome, and I'm probably going to want to watch that because, you know, even though I've seen some of the, you know, the documentary-ish type stuff, the behind-the-scenes stuff that they did for Titanic to show how they did some of the things, I think them doing one now in a bit of a retrospective, they'll probably bring in, I imagine anyway, some of the actors involved as well to talk about it. I think it'll be probably pretty neat, so I thought I'd toss that in there. Is that something
you're going to be in 4K 3D?
Probably.
Something Supermax animated video.
Something that we don't even have Blu-ray players for yet. It doesn't exist. If they're not including, somebody in chat said, Colin said in chat, if they're not including Celine Dion on that documentary, then it's bullshit. I
actually 150% agree with that.
Yeah, it's true.
That song has got to be in there. Like, that song was part of the reason the movie was so huge, and that was also part of the reason that song was so huge.
Absolutely. I mean, Celine Dion was already a huge it
was like the perfect synergy for that movie.
And it was
a perfect synergy.
I remember that song was so huge. Even I listened to that shit on repeat, like just nonstop. And then it was popular enough. I mean, when did that come out? 97?
Yeah, so it was 1996 or 97. I think it was 96. So I remember this. I don't think I can get in trouble for this because I'm 30 years old now. But my parents pretty much, like, at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, right when my brother and I were about to go to sleep, they were just like, yo, we're just going to go out and do some groceries, and we'll be back in like a couple of minutes. And then they weren't back for like 3 hours. And apparently my mom and dad went out to go watch Titanic.
Oh, snap.
And they're like, again, we were like, I was like 10 or 11 or something. So it wasn't like anything like super crazy, but like they very rarely left us home alone like that for any long period of time. So it was one of those things.
It's amazing.
I don't know where I was going with that yet, but it was like one of the few, that movie was so big that my parents went out and like ditched us to go watch it in
ditched
theaters.
The kids to go see it. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I can remember distinctly in school, somebody had we were doing, I can't even remember what the project was, to be completely honest with you. But it was one of those things that it was coming up at the end of the semester, and so it was, people were, you know, a bit jokey about it, and the days were shorter because it was the end of the school year or whatnot. And one of the guys in the class dressed up in like a dress and everything, and went up to the front of the class, and it had a boombox with him, and dropped the boombox at the front of the class, and straight up sang that fucking song in front of the whole class for his presentation. And that was his entire presentation. He had no work put in.
Had to.
Nothing. He just dressed.
We had to sing that song in chorus class.
Did you really?
Yeah, like we had to sing it for a concert in elementary school, I think, or like something ridiculous. Might have been 7th grade for me, which was a little bit later.
Yeah.
I just remember them being like, this song is important.
It was, I mean, there's only so many things about that movie that I remember. I remember seeing a pair of tits as a kid, which was always a 10 out of 10. And then I remember when the ship breaks in half and the dude falls and he hammers that vent so fucking hard you cringe every time you see it. And then I remember Celine Dion singing that song. And those are like the 3 major points of Titanic, in no particular order. But I will say that that guy falling and hitting that vent is one of the greatest things in film. It is so good, and the noise is so fucking perfect, and it just sounds amazing, and it looks so painful, and then you realize that he probably had the easiest out of anyone on the entire ship, so it was whatever. It didn't matter.
Real criminal on that boat was Rose.
Oh, don't start the fucking, there was room. Door. Oh, for fuck's sake. It was pretty bad,
I gotta go there.
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad though. But it was nuts how far ahead of you know, everyone else Titanic was. And it was James Cameron. He's always ahead of everybody else. But the production in that movie was insane. Absolutely crazy. I don't know what the budget was for the movie at the time. I kind of want to know what the budget was.
It was pretty large.
Well, I would think so. Let's see. $200 million US was the budget for that. That's crazy.
Do me another favor. Do $200 million $1995 in 2017.
Yeah, exactly.
Is $1995 were actually a lot more valuable than they are now.
How about I give you 1997 in 2016? How about that?
That's good enough.
Close enough?
That's close enough.
Calculate. 300 million today in 2016.
So about 60% of Destiny's production budget.
Yeah. 60% of it, but it went on to make over $2 billion.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Just an absolutely absurd amount of money in box office and beyond. I mean, it's still just making money. I'm sure when it's the anniversary, we're gonna see it come out. It wouldn't shock me if they came out in like IMAX or some shit. If they like brought it back to theaters.
That movie is gonna come back in theaters for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah,
they've been doing it with lesser movies. It's definitely coming out.
4K HDR.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to do original film. They're going to run the original film rolls.
Well, they'll do that,
give
but
us the 35 millimeter and run it out. Yeah,
they'll do. But when they'll re-release it on Blu-ray in 4K HDR, all that nonsense, it'll get the full treatment, I'm sure, and it will be like some anniversary pack with like the documentary and all that nonsense, and I'll probably end up buying it. I'm not going to lie, probably end up owning that. Here's one. That's kind of, I could have almost followed this up with the Star Wars related stuff. As we all know, or most of us know, Harold Ramis, who is an absolute god, passed away not that long ago. I mean, what was it, last year? Was it?
It was recent. It was like a year or two. I was thinking it might have been 2 years at this point.
Yeah. But he passed away. If you don't know who Harold Ramis is, if you've seen Ghostbusters, he was Egon. I was confused as to how the E is supposed to be pronounced.
Ray. Egon.
There you go. That's how you remember it, obviously. So yeah, he passed away. And there's been rumors of Ghostbusters 3 for years now, like forever, and Murray's talked about it, Aykroyd's talked about it, I'm pretty sure Ramis has talked about it, or throughout the last, I don't know, 10 years pretty much, I have to imagine at this point, and it has sounded like it was really close to production, and then it all went up in flames, and then it would get really close again, and then it all went up in flames, and then there'd be different reasons, Murray wasn't happy, or Aykroyd had a hemorrhoid and couldn't get it fucking to happen, or like whatever it was, there was always excuses, and I guess it's back to the point where they're kind of talking about it again, but now, of course, the problem is one of the three are, they're dead. And with the advent of all the crazy technology that we've been injecting dead actors into movies with, the whole concept of having a completely CGI Ramis reprise his role as Egon, well, I mean, it comes up. And apparently his daughter was asked about it, and she was saying, well, it's kind of crazy to me that they would consider doing that, but I would think about, what would Dad think? And I, she said, I'm pretty sure that if it was done really well, and Murray and Aykroyd or whatever were okay with it, I guess, then he'd do it. And if it was really bad, then he wouldn't do it, which makes perfectly good sense, I guess, if you think about it. But I'll ask you this question. Is there a way to really do that well and not have it be horrible, having a CGI Harold Ramis reprise his role as Egon?
Mark, I know you're our editor and you're probably watching this live, but this might be the one time that anger meter might actually work.
I'm going to let you talk and have a nibble of this
Absolutely not. Absolutely not should they do a CGI Harold Ramis. You want to know why? For Peter Cushing's, it made sense because Grand Moff Tarkin, he was an important character, but he's not some huge, massive character that was defining of the entire Star Wars thing. So when you CGI him for the purposes of making Rogue One for like a small thing to kind of have him in there, makes perfect friggin' sense. Okay, you know, they approved, everything's fine. Harold Ramis, you know, on many different levels, was a very unique personality. In Ghostbusters, he was a character, but he wasn't usually an actor. He's a writer, producer, comedian. And I don't think there's any way, and he was a very unique one at that. I don't think there's any way in hell, even though you might get someone that looks like him CGI, but there's maybe one other person, two other people combined who can get Harold Ramis's type of humor and put it together into a usable quantity. One of them is one of the guys he worked with, which was Dan Aykroyd. They were like best friends, and you know, they understood each other's humor. And surprisingly enough, I would say Zach Braff and Harold Ramis worked together on a couple of different projects. They also had kind of similar styles of humor, which is more rare these days. So having a full CGI Egon, I don't think it really works. And personally, the only way I would kind of see a fly in a Ghostbusters movie is if he's coming back as a ghost or something, maybe, you know, do something. But it's kind of hard because they never gave closure on what happened to him. So him coming back as a ghost is kind of weird. So I feel like it's kind of unnecessary. If you're going to reboot it, you know, reboot the franchise, don't have the old guys come in to make a cameo. And sure as hell, don't 3D CG cameo Harold Ramis as much as you may want to. You know, I don't feel like you'd be able to capture the essence of him as a character, and I feel like it would actually detract.
No, I agree with that. It's
more of a gimmick, which is no good.
I think you can get away with CGI like they did with Tarkin in Star Wars, if only because, I mean, let's be honest, how much screen time did he really have? There wasn't that much of it.
Yeah, it was like, and you looked at it and you're like, this is definitely CGI. You could 100% tell. But they did it well.
Yeah, it was super obvious that it was CGI, but they did it very well, obviously, and they got his facial expressions and everything down. But the thing about Tarkin, you know, is, it's not like he. I'm trying to say this without really pissing off people. What was the guy's name that played Tarkin again? It's eluding me right now.
Peter Cushing's.
Peter Cushing. So, it's not like Cushing's had, in that role, a whole lot of really unique mannerisms in the body, which is a little bit more difficult to do than the face, because the face is obviously the part that they can spend the most time on the crafting. The body mannerisms, I feel like, are a little bit more difficult to pull off in that case. And he walked around with his hands behind his back all the time. Like, it wasn't like he did anything crazy, and even in his face there wasn't that much going on. Like, he was supposed to, he was this super serious, militant hard ass, but his voice was almost always low. He was calm about almost everything all the time. Like I said, hands behind back, didn't do a whole lot of moving. And so when he was put back into this movie in CGI, it wasn't an enormous hurdle for them, to say the least. I imagine it was difficult and took some time. But if you compared that to trying to recreate Ramis's character in Ghostbusters to the point where he's playing a lead role in
I don't know if it's going to be a lead role, but he's a lead Ghostbuster, and you need to give. You can't necessarily. I don't think you should be CGI recreating someone who was a lead character.
No,
right? Because it's hard to do that transition.
But then, like, how else are they going to do it? Like, if they're gonna write him out of the movie and say something happens and oh no, now Egon is not part of the gang, but he's in the movie for the first like 20 minutes, and so he's only got, 7-10 minutes of screen time in total where they have to do the CGI stuff. Okay, weird. I still don't think they should do the Ghostbusters movie if it's only Aykroyd and Murray to begin with. But
I mean, if they're doing it, they need to do it like years later, and then just be like, "Oh, hey, he died of a heart attack or something 10 years ago." Whatever, do it that way. I'd rather just have them give him a verbal send-off than anything and have a photo of him in the house or something. Like, that's fine.
Exactly.
You know, guess what? Actors die. We don't need to resurrect them with CGI.
No, I think that's the thing. I think it can be done tastefully, to say the least. I think that they're
or just have him come back as a ghost or something for like a gag reel thing.
Yeah, I mean there could be a number of ways they could take it, but I don't think doing an entire movie and then having him be, you know, done that way is necessarily the way to take that. I think how they're handling it in Star Wars makes perfectly good sense, because Tarkin needed to exist in that movie for it to work. But he wasn't.
Tarkin was done properly.
But yet he wasn't. Yeah, and because he didn't have that much time on screen, it wasn't the end of the world. Leia also, same thing. End of the movie, shows up. 5 seconds. They, you know, give her you know, makeover to make her look like she's 20 years old again. And they're gonna have to do that again.
That wasn't her. That was just CGI on a different actress.
No, I know. So they're gonna have to my knowledge, I don't know if they had all the stuff already prepped with Leia.
They had everything done for.
Did
they? Episode 9. Yeah, she was done. She was done filming already.
But I think they still. I thought that. Well, maybe I misread that. I thought they still had maybe not for the next movie, but there were other things that she
not
needed
for
to be
9,
done
but
for.
they had everything done for. They had everything done for 8.
Yeah,
like all principal filming and items were done.
Yeah. So, you know, there's ways to do it. I just don't think that this is the way to do it. And I don't think of all the things to do it for, Ghostbusters 3 is the one to make your stand on. As much as I'd love to see Ghostbusters 3, because Ghostbusters
I'm a huge
is
Ghostbusters
awesome.
fan.
Oh, it's great.
I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan.
It's amazing. But
I wish they would reboot the franchise and do it properly. You know, we haven't had a Ghostbusters movie in what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, but I don't think. Well, yeah, we're going to ignore the all-female one that recently came out.
There was no Ghostbusters movie for like the past 15 years, Adam.
Yeah,
maybe 20.
That's true. That's
just like they never made Diablo 3.
It's been a lot longer than that. But I would like to see them do it, but I don't know. I mean, I think the problem is I doubt that Murray or Aykroyd want to hand over the reins to a group of young people to truly reboot the movie or the franchise. I don't think
they could do a lot with the
that.
Ghostbusters in 2017.
Well, I'm not going to make. I'm not.
Think
I can't.
about
I'm
it.
not. I'm not. No, go. You
do
go.
A lot
you go
with
ahead.
that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they would do with it, but they could do a lot with it. There's a lot of great comedians in our day and age.
Who plays?
Like, I'm not saying remake it with, you know, existing characters.
Who plays Trump?
Get Donald Trump to play Donald Trump, because no one else is stupid enough to play Trump. All right, that's about as political as I'm going to get.
Oh, you know who's going to play him? It would be what's his name? Fucking the
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. Yeah. 100%. Alec Baldwin would take that every single time.
Oh man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, looking at my recording time, I would say that we've filled up roughly about as much time as needed for this segment. We could try and extend it if we wanted to, but we've got to get to side B and tackle some of those questions from the patrons themselves. So we're going to call it for side A on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. If you're on iTunes or on YouTube or listening to this anywhere other than Twitch, you'll have to wait for the release of side B. Maybe it's already released by the time you're getting to this. For those of you on Twitch, we will be back after a brief break with more side B, Technical Alpha. But until then, we'll see you next time. Peace! Hey guys, if you're enjoying Technical Alpha and are interested in supporting us, do I have a solution for you? We've set up this Patreon page to help us help you, help us and you. We've got a list of options that would make a used car salesman cry that provides you with a range of goodies for your support. Head on over to patreon.com/technicalalpha to see what's up for grabs. Like fancy badges and stuff? Subscribe to us on Twitch to get access to, well, badges and stuff. Not big on subscriptions. We have a button below that allows you to directly throw money at our faces. Careful you don't take those eyes out though. We are so very fond of our eyes. Honestly though, while we like to joke about the sellout, just being a regular listener is a huge help, and we're incredibly thankful for all of your support. Technical Alpha will continue soon, so sit tight.